welcome back to the Whatnauts review show. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how's it going? How's your weekend?
It's been okay. I worked a particularly long week, so the weekend is much appreciated.
Do you have Monday off? Because it's going to be Martin Luther King Day, and I have the day off.
I do also have the day off, yes.
Oh, nice. Yeah, my brain did the weird thing where it was like, I knew I had Monday off. I knew I had that holiday off, but it didn't register for me that that makes it a 3-day weekend. And it was like late Friday night. And I was just like, oh man, I have a 3-day weekend. This is awesome. So I'm very lucky about that.
We're all pretty behind on stuff at work. So whenever I realize there's a holiday weekend coming up, I view it with a sense of dread. Like, I'm going to enjoy it while I have the day off, and then I'm going to go back to the office next day, and I am going to drown.
Yeah.
I don't look forward to that part.
Understandable. But let's see, we are not here to talk about all of that. If you guys did not know, here at the Whatnauts review show, this is a weekly book club style podcast covering all sorts of different genres and mediums. This week, we're finally getting some anime on the show in more than a year now. Apparently, we didn't do any anime on the show last year.
It is something we do historically. We'll talk about like 2 or 3 anime, various series and movies every year. But last year, we had some manga that was on our to-read list, and you had a particular interest in kaiju, so we spent time with Japanese live-action cinema. So we are in Japan. We took a good look at Japanese media, just not anything animated.
Exactly. And when you mentioned that to me at the end of last year, I was like, "There's no way we've had to have done something," but apparently not. So. Started this year off with John Wick last week. You guys can go check that out. But I was like, hey, first things first, we kind of just need to get some anime on there right away. So I pitched 3 different ones. And Melissa, you ended up picking Puella Magi Madoka Magica is the full name, or just Madoka Magica. As most people call it. So here we are talking about Madoka Magica, our first magical girl anime on the show too.
True.
Which is neat. So what inspired you to pick this one?
I'm not a big anime person on my own time. I'm happy to do it the 2 or 3 times a year we normally do it on this show, but I don't really seek it out in my spare time when I'm not trying to generate things for this show or watching things that you have pitched to me. So I thought, if I'm going to spend my time with this, let me check off one of the bigger names off my list. One of the titles I know I have heard, that I know I have seen images from. Let me contextualize this big hit of the medium.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember when this first came out, because it was like 2011, 2012-ish. Let me see, what does it say here? 2011, Japanese anime. This was like big all over Tumblr back in the day, all that good stuff. And I did not watch it right away, but one of the things I remember is hearing people talk about it, being like, this is not, like, it's a magical girl anime, so you know what to expect from that, but it's also not. It's very different. And I think looking back on the show, it's kind of like, I would put this in the same wheelhouse as like Neon Genesis Evangelion or Revolutionary Girl Utena, and in the way that they kind of take the genres that they exist in and deconstruct them or twist them and turn them on their head to kind of examine some stuff that those genres might typically like not look at or gloss over. And I remember really liking this, but it's been about a decade since I watched it. And so I remembered almost none of it. So I'm glad that we got to rewatch it again this week, 'cause I had a good time. I like this one a lot.
And we were talking when you pitched this to me about how we haven't covered any magical girl anime before, but it is something we're both familiar with. Like if you just grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s, if you saw Sailor Moon or Cardcaptor Sakura, or I was reading a lot of Animerica magazine. I was an anime when I was like 13, and it was so difficult to get your hands on. It's like, what's dubbed on Saturday morning, or what can you buy on a very expensive DVD at Suncoast? So it's just hard to get very into anime. And now it's so easily accessible, but I can't get as interested in it as I was like 20 years ago.
There's
like me and anime just
much,
missed each other. Two boats passing in the night. Anime and I never connected enough at the right time. But this is a genre that even if you do spend just a little time with anime, you recognize, you get the tropes of it, you get the patterns of it. So I felt like we don't need to cover a baseline before we get into this deconstruction. Let's jump right in.
Yeah, which is something I would not recommend for like Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Yeah.
Someone I know started to watch that, having heard me talk about it. And I was just like, ooh, you haven't seen any other like mech anime, have you? And they were like, no, I have no idea what's happening in this show. I was like, yeah.
Oh, no.
So good stuff, though. Yeah, I really enjoy this one. I had a blast. I forgot how like dark and tragic most of the show is, which is something I feel like you don't typically see in a magical girl anime. There will be some, villain, some threat, something like that. But it is in like your typical like cartoonish fashion. Whereas this one deals with some very, very heavy topics. Just a sense of loneliness all the way to supposed suicide and stuff like that. It's heavy. It's very sad. It's very emotional. And I forgot how dark it could be, but it ends up on a very like hopeful high note, which I think is a great place to end the show. So.
Yeah, the show is very well constructed. I like that it absolutely went for what it wanted to go for. It's very consistent. You can tell it's very well formed, and they delivered exactly the product that they had designed. It's truly a magical girl story in the darkest universe possible. It's a very somber show. I don't think there's any point where I laughed at any point.
Right, yeah.
There's not jokes in this, which is funny on its own, because if you do look at this out of context, it looks so cute and bubbly and fun. Like that's how all the characters are designed. Even like the opening credits, some of the end credits, because they swap out several different versions just across these 12 episodes. Or like that final like still image, that final character shot of the episode where then they have the voiceover telling you what the next episode's going to be. All of that looks fun. The girls are wearing all the cute outfits. They're going on adventures. They're hanging out with each other. And all of it is a lie. Like barely any of that happens. Like you see characters having a fun time together. And it's like, no, that person died. They never did this.
Or you realize it was like some other universe.
Right. Or it's imaginary. It's a dream. I like that the show purposefully misleads you in that way and keeps doing it. After like this death I vaguely mentioned happens fairly early on, and it keeps showing you the images of that character and all the other characters having fun with each other. Like it's not like it's trying to trick you, and then after it has successfully tricked you, it goes full in on its actual tone. All the cute imagery is there up through the final episode, even when you're like, no, none of this has happened. None of this is going to happen.
Indeed. But besides that, though, how did you like it? What did you think?
It is a pretty impressive piece of storytelling. Like I said, it's very somber, so it's difficult to say, I enjoyed it. I had fun. It's not a fun set of episodes, but I am glad I saw it. I was happy I was able to cross this one off my list. It makes some really interesting choices, and the art style is unique. The sort of patchwork, multimedia, paper cutout style of these sort of magical labyrinths they have to go into to fight these witches. I've never seen anything like that in an anime before, or in very many other things before.
Yeah, it has some neat artwork for sure. Plot wise, let's do a plot synopsis for people who may not have seen it yet. The story follows this young girl named Madoka, and she is in middle school. And one day they get a new student in the school, and she seems super cool. But she seems kind of shy. She doesn't really talk to many people. But through a series of events, it eventually learns that this girl is a magical girl, and that she is protecting the world against witches. But she's there not because a particular witch is there, but to stop Madoka from becoming a magical girl. And she's just like, that's kind of weird. Like, why would you do all of this stuff? And it's just this series of events after events of just things that almost push her to becoming a magical girl. Her friend is in trouble. Someone she looks up to is in trouble. And they start to be introduced to this world of magical girls, and what is the logic behind it? What is the magic behind it? How does it happen? There is this small character named Cube who looks like a cat, but is this like alien looking cat. And that is the familiar for these magical girls, and they have to make a contract with Cube. And he is the one that will like, hey, if like I will bestow upon you these powers if you make this contract with me, and you do so by asking for one wish. And it can be whatever you want. And so it almost seems too good to be true. And as the story continues, you kind of learn maybe it is a little too good to be true here. But Madoka ends up becoming a magical girl in the end and solving everything. I don't feel like that's too much of a spoiler that she eventually becomes one, but that's not until later in the show. That was like a super vague plot synopsis of that stuff. Do you want to add anything to that to fill in some of the blanks there that I missed?
I mentioned that it's a very small show. Like, it's really about this immediate pocket of like 5 middle school aged girls. The school part is really not a big factor. Like, we never see them doing homework. There's never like a test or a festival or a dance or anything like that comes up. It's just purely the structure through which these girls have met each other as they go to school. It is almost entirely monster fighting and them like pensively having meetups around the city where they like dramatically face away from each other, having these intense talks. There's a lot of that. I would almost characterize it as melodramatic, the way that it's just all time after time,
Absolutely.
just like pairs or trios of these girls in conversation. Like, I'm going through so much right now. I can't even look at you. I'm going to stare out at the city I have to protect.
Right. Yeah. There's lots of like yearning, like off into the distance.
Angst, big angst show.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are interested in magical girl anime and stuff like that, and you have not watched it yet, I would say go check it out. I feel like this is one of the must watches of the genre. But yeah, go check it out. Hopefully you enjoy it as much as I did. So good stuff. With that, I think we will take a quick break. And when we get back, we will get into spoilers and start breaking the show down a little bit more. So we will be right back. Here at the Whatnauts, we make multiple different shows, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. If you enjoy our shows, patreon.com/thewhatnauts is the best place to show your support. For just $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and at our $3 tier, a Patreon-exclusive podcast, The Pilots Club. You can even get a shout out and thank you on most of our shows at the $5 tier. And if you're one of our patrons already, thank you so much, it means the world to us. You can find out more information on our website, thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in The Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch for video versions of the shows, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a hoodie or a mug or something else, head over to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we are back. Big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We appreciate you a lot.
Thank you.
Cool things that we have been up to here at the Whatnauts. The Patreon podcast, the Pilots Club, we started off this year while watching the pilot for Bird Girl. It's not up at the time of recording this yet, but it will be up by time this goes public. So if you guys are listening to this as a podcaster on YouTube right now, it'll already be up. That's for our $3 patrons and above. We do a patron exclusive podcast every month. Next month, Puchinsky, the highest rated, absolute must watch in the cop reincarnated as a dog genre. So
yeah,
I'm
the number
looking
one.
forward to Puchinsky next month. I already mentioned last week we covered the first 3 John Wick movies. That was in anticipation of the 4th one later this year. We are looking forward to that. And then on our monthly ongoing series here on the review show, we are starting the Fast and the Furious. The same reason with number 10 is coming out later this year. I've only ever actually seen the first 3.
I've seen none of these, but I've heard numerous podcasts describe them to me. It's time to watch them with these 2 eyes of my own.
Yeah.
I am happy that amongst all this like adult man action movies, we did put in some like cute magical 13-year-old girls.
Indeed. So yeah, for the next couple months, we will be at the end of the month, we will be talking about a few of the Fast and the Furious movies. The first 3 will be covered at the end of January, 4 through 6, the end of February, and then 7 through 9 at the end of March. Hobbs and Shaw will be optional. You can do that one if you just want some extra info and context, all that good stuff. The Captain's Log, we got started this past week too. I talked about all of the like how much movies and TV and comics I read and watched, all that stuff. If you guys want to hear how much of my life I wasted away last year doing all of that good stuff will be on there. Melissa, you were reading out BattleBot names and stuff.
Yeah.
We have a blast on that show. And then I think this next week we'll be planning out some of the kind of games and special episodes that we will be up to on the Captain's Log, which will be a lot of fun. And last but not least for housekeeping here, The Last of Us is coming out on HBO. One of my favorite video games. We will be doing reactions for each of the episodes up on the Reactor Core and on our YouTube page. Myself and Ignacio will be doing those. So I think that should be a lot of fun. But yeah, look out for that. And that's about it. Say we get into spoilers. Bam. There we go. Spoiler territory. Melissa, where do you want to start with this?
This is a fairly minor part of the entire show, but it is my favorite part. So I'm going to talk about this to make sure it doesn't get missed. I love the weird architecture of all the spaces they go to in this show.
Sure.
Like we mentioned that they go into these like witch-made labyrinths, which are these sort of abstract, surreal dream worlds made out of like paper cutouts and stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how episode 1 begins. Madoka has a weird dream. She wakes up. She just gets on with her day. We see her brushing her teeth in the bathroom at the sink next to her mom. And their bathroom is a massive glass-encased room with one double sink at the far end of the room and not a single other object. I understand if you're like, well, I'm not going to show you a toilet, but there's not like, here's a bathtub, here's a shower, here's a towel rack, here's a rug. No, it's also like, it looks like a greenhouse. It's encased in glass. It's unnecessarily large and vacant. And there's a lot of spaces like that throughout the show. Like when we go to their middle school is like a giant building where every classroom is just like a glass cube. Again, with nothing in it. The kids have these weird cyber desks that like pop up from a slot in the floor. So like when one of the girls isn't there, it's not like Madoka looks over and her desk is empty. She looks over and there is no desk. The desk doesn't pop up if that student isn't there. And there's just a flashing digital sign on the floor that says absent. But it operates, okay, some of the stuff looks real. Each of the girls' bedrooms, for the most part, looks like a real bedroom. There's some naturalistic, true to life, believable set pieces in this show, which makes it all the weirder that you go into all these blank glass prisms that are supposed to be like bathrooms and classrooms and other normal things. Like it's too much work to be a cost and time saving measure. If you wanted to do that, they're just in sort of a blank white room where you sort of like drew the lines of like, well, that's where the corner is. And I drew a rectangle and that's like a chalkboard or whatever. No,
it's the glass room from John Wick from last week, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they're doing all their lessons in a glass onion. So much work went into designing this structure that is minimal, but not in a way that is thrown off casually. Like, I don't know, put them in a room or something. Like they put a lot of work into designing something that is entirely unnatural with nothing said about it. Time after time, you see these weird spaces that the girls are in. Nothing is said about it. It's not part of the plot. It doesn't mean anything plot-wise. But it's just part of the window dressing of making this world they're in feel really uncanny in certain ways. And I dug that a lot. That they're not living in this like permanent dream world. But every once in a while, you'll just see a room that is not impossible, but so absolutely impractical and unrealistic that it makes you feel like I don't know where I am. I don't know what's happening. Like there's a slow, quiet surreality pervasive throughout this series in a way you don't see in a lot of other things.
It's interesting because despite all of that, I feel like it's purposeful. Like it is, yes. It's not commented on, like you said. They're not like, wow, this school really is strange, huh? Why are all the walls made of glass and you can see into the other classroom? Like there's no conversation about that. But I feel like it gives you this strange feeling of being watched.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it felt like to me. You're being observed.
Exactly.
Which is kind of one of the like it's I don't really want to go as far and say it's a theme of the show, but it almost is. Like here are these young people in school in their daily lives trying to figure out who they are as a person, as almost an adult, right? They're starting to figure out who they are. And yeah, we just get this sense that like they're always being watched. They're always being observed. And then later on in the show, when we learn that that Cube is a species of alien that is basically observing humans to like herd them like cattle and see which ones have the potential to be a magical girl and then turn into like it really does start to feel like, oh, that's not a school, that's a pen, right? Like they've just like herded them into all of that. Like there is these dark undertones in that are creepy, and it makes it feel uncanny, and it's just like it's unnatural, but it's not unheard of per se.
Exactly.
But it's not common.
I also have to talk about the chairs.
Yeah.
So I think the first time I noticed this is one of the scenes where Sayaka goes to visit Violin Boy in the hospital. The hospital room, which is odd enough in itself because it is in a hospital, but it's covered with like wall to wall, completely filled like wooden bookshelves. Like it looks like, oh, maybe this boy's from a rich family. His room is like a study. They brought in like a private hospital equipment for him to convalesce. No, this is just a room in a real hospital that looks like it's in a private residence.
It's also a very large room. Like it's not a small room.
Again,
it's huge, and the bed is like pushed off in one corner by the window, and then the rest is just empty except for the walls.
Truly, this is a show full of unnerving negative space. But she's sitting there on like a little chair next to his bed, and I think at first there's like maybe another chair or two near the bed. And during one really dramatic scene they have with each other, the camera pulls out and the room is filled with all sorts of different chairs, all pointed at the bed. Not close enough to where it's like, oh, that's where his parents would sit. No, they're just sort of set back. Like they are meant for people to sit there and watch.
Audience.
Yes, they are audience chairs, but they are all different chairs. You'll get like a mid-century modern wireframe chair. You'll get
big chairs, tall chairs, small chairs, wide chairs, fast chairs, lots and lots of chairs.
Yes. Just play the commercial from your local furniture warehouse in your mind, and it's all of those chairs. You've got bar stools. You've got like rich leather armchairs. You've got like simple straight wooden dining chairs. You've got kind of curly Q little French cafe chairs. Lots and lots of chairs. Just pointed, absent, not commented on, just pointed at the bed. And you see this later in Madoka's house when she has, I forget who she's talking to, but she's having a dramatic heart-to-heart with somebody. And then every time the camera angle changes, more chairs start piling up in her room. And there's one scene where she has a conversation with her mom, like in the hallway. And then the hallway starts to fill up with chairs.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
I love it. The chairs are my favorite part of the entire series.
Well, I would like to talk about her mom real quick.
Yes. I love the mom.
I think her mom is a very, very interesting character. There is some conversations about her of why do you do what you do? Why are you working at this company, and why do you work so hard? Like, was that your dream? Was it something you fell into? Like all that stuff. What I thought was interesting is that the show starts out with a transformation of sorts, but it's not the magical girl transformation. It is the mom and the daughter in that bathroom putting on their makeup and getting ready for work and putting their clothes on. Like, in a sense, that is a transformation of them getting ready, putting on this outfit of who they will be that day. And I just thought that was an interesting way to start the show. I liked her having those heart-to-hearts with her mom. I don't think that's something you see frequently. I feel like moms are either dead or they're just sort of these symbolic figureheads of domestic life. Like the mom stands in for the entire family. Like I watched a lot of Sailor Moon when I was a kid. I remember seeing her family, but like the family is just all one family. Like there's no real difference between her mom and her dad. I think she might have had like a kid brother or something. Like there's no specific relationship she has with any one of them. Whenever she talks about him, it's like, oh, my family will get worried. I have to get home and see my family. Like it's non-specific.
it's entirely like a symbol for everything.
Yeah.
Like the mom's always symbolic. And this is all of her family members feel very specific. Like her mom is this businesswoman who doesn't like her job, but now that she's in it, she's like, I am determined to do the best possible job that I can in this career path. Even if I don't like it, even if I hate my boss, I'm still determined to show him up. And her dad, it seems like maybe he's a stay-at-home dad. He's got a garden. Maybe he's a chef. She's got this really cute, like 2-year-old brother.
Yeah.
And the magical girl, I've never seen a magical woman in any anime. Like, I think like the magical girl character tops out at like 19 or something.
Sure.
In my admittedly limited anime knowledge, I've never seen a magical girl story that really talks about, am I going to keep doing this as I get older and get a job and get married and have kids, et cetera, et cetera? Am I still going to be doing this when I'm 45? And that's also something this show doesn't touch on. Like, these girls aren't really thinking about anything beyond their immediate circumstances. Like, they never ask Kyubey, am I going to be a magical girl forever? How long is the contract? Am I doing this? Do I get to retire when I'm like 65? Seems like they maybe kind of at least subconsciously pick out or design a magical girl outfit, which are all girly outfits. There's never the question of, okay, when I'm like in my 20s, do I get a new one that's less frilly? Like, can I ask for that? There's no sense of how is this role going to age with me as I age. And even when the girls find out that like their bodies are these weird sort of dead shells, there's never the question of, am I going to get any older? Am I going to age? Am I ever going to look different? Am I frozen exactly the way I am now? They never ask any of this. I'm the only one asking this, just the audiences.
That's kind of part of the mystery / like the evil reveal is that like you're not expected to make it past a few years of this. Yeah. And so maybe you don't age. Because you will eventually turn into a witch here. You will eventually lose all hope and despair and end up hating certain people and, you know, this and that. And that's what turns you into a witch. And that's what Kyubey is kind of like hiding and not telling them. So, I mean, if there would have been someone who's like, so if I choose to do this, what happens when I'm like 65? Like, am I still going to be doing this? Do I get some kind of like pension or retirement fund? Like, what do I need to do here? Right. That stuff, I think, would have maybe revealed the secret like right away. I'm just like, well, we don't really have a retirement plan except for finding more magical girls to take care of you. What do you mean take care of me? Well, there's more than one take care of, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I like that even if the girls aren't thinking about their futures as women outside of a magical girl is the smaller version of a witch, which is a nice bit of wordplay I did like. If a witch is a magical woman, then a magical girl is like what evolves into a witch. This is where you start. But just getting the mom, it was nice to have a look at what their adult lives could be if they weren't magical girls. They're not looking at it like that, but at least it's there for the audience. You have the businesswoman mom, and you also have that teacher who it's just sort of set dressing. She's just there chattering at the beginning of a classroom scene before it switches to the girls who are like, I don't know why so-and-so isn't here today. But the teacher's always complaining about her boyfriend and giving these lessons that are like, is there more than one right way to cook an egg? If you like your egg scrambled and he likes his over easy, like, does he have any right to dump you for that? No, there's multiple right ways to cook an egg.
The teacher is such a non-character in the show.
Yeah.
But I found it really funny that almost every time you see her, she's talking about some kind of like domestic thing. Or most of the time, right? Yeah. Like what's the best way to cook an egg. Like, boys, you better be thankful that she cooked your eggs, even if they're a little bit burnt.
Yeah.
Right? And it is this very like traditional, like this is the role of the woman in the household and in the family. But I don't think that's the class they're in. That they're in like math or they're in like stuff. And she's just like going on about all these like domestic roles and stuff. And it's just like, what is happening in this school? What is going on?
It's just her complaining about her private life, which doesn't seem happy. But again, it is a look into a possibility of adulthood that the girls don't think about. And like we said, the teacher is a non-character. She's like the closest thing we do get to a joke in this series, which is really striking when in the second to last episode, after the school has learned like, oh, Sayaka has died, essentially, like, the mommy is missing. We cut away and we spent so much of this series, pretty much the entirety of the series, with all of these middle school girls. And we cut away and like the first scenes we get of adults by themselves without any of the girls around, we're at a bar somewhere and it's Madoka's mom and the teacher. And we don't know if they're friends or if they just happen to recognize each other from like parent-teacher conference or whatever. But they're both sitting at the bar commiserating about, I don't know what to do in this circumstance. Like the kids are also upset. I feel like I can't read them. I don't know what's going on in their lives. I don't know why they're not talking to me. And I really appreciated getting that look at here's just pure adult life without any knowledge of magical girls at all.
Yeah. At one point, because I was still trying to like reconstruct the plot in my head as I was rewatching this show, because I had forgotten what it was. And I was like, I know there's going to be some kind of big finale, like something big happens at the end, but I don't remember how we get there or what details they give us about the world and the universe. And I was like, were their moms magical girls at one point? Like they were not, but that was a thought that went in my head of like, it almost would be believable if in their youth they were also magical girls, especially the mom, because she is so driven. She is so like, I like a challenge and I will overcome this challenge, even if it's not exactly what my dream was. I like the idea of having this obstacle in front of me and overcoming it. And that feels like something a magical girl would do, right? They're presented with a challenge and they made it like, yes, we will take it on. Here we go. And so yeah, that was just a thought that I had in my head, was just like, I like the mom. Mom's neat.
Yeah.
Good for her.
I'm happy she gets to be included, even though we never get so much of a sense of anybody else's family. Everybody's family is dead, or Sayaka must have a family, but we never see them and they're never mentioned specifically.
Yeah.
So I like what we did get.
Let's start talking about the magical girl experience, the ins and outs, the goods, the bads.
Let's open the pamphlet.
Yeah.
Do we want this timeshare?
So it's pretty early on that we start to get some of these like, hey, it's not so great to be a magical girl. You have no time for yourself. You can't go on dates. You can't spend your free time playing video games. All of this stuff that Usagi is like, I want to play video games. I want to eat. You can't do that, right?
Yeah.
No, stop. Go help other people.
But at least in other stories, there would be scenes where they start to do something and then they're called away. It's not like the girls are like, let's go to a festival. Oh, no, we have to go fight a monster. Like, there's never an attempt to really do anything that magical girl-ism would prevent them from doing. It's not like they have to stop having fun. We never see them start having fun.
And I think in... So one of the big twists of this show is that the show that we're watching is only one timeline, and Homura has come from a different timeline, has rewound it a bunch to try and stop a certain outcome. But in the one that we're watching, I at least got the sense that Madoka didn't necessarily want to be a magical girl, but just wanted to be useful. Just wanted to
Yes.
She said multiple times, like, I don't have any particular talents. Like, I'm not good at a musical instrument. I'm not good at a certain subject in school. I'm just kind of average, just kind of normal. And that, I think, is not only her draw to be a magical girl of like, hey, if I did become one, that would be noteworthy at least, and I could help people that way. But I think when she sits down and talks with her mom about like why she's in the job that she's in, or with her dad about why her mom like doesn't actually like the job, but likes the challenge, right? And is useful to the company and can do something. I think she feels a connection there of like, oh, I kind of feel like mom does with this whole thing. I don't necessarily want to be a magical girl. Like the mom didn't necessarily want to be at that company, but she'd be useful, which is kind of just what she wants there. And so I liked that too, that there is like this reflection of the mom, and it's not just like, oh yeah, everything's sunshine and rainbows. You can be a magical girl anytime. Go for it, kids. You can do it.
Yeah, you never really get to see the benefit of being a magical girl. Like the girls want to be a magical girl seems like it's a concept that already exists in this world. It is already something the girls are dreaming of, and we don't get any specific. It's not like they've got a poster on their wall for like what is clearly supposed to be Sailor Moon, but is legally distinct. Like we don't know exactly where. We can imagine it's pop culture, but we don't have any specific markers for why do you know what a magical girl is? What are you picturing? What are you expecting? What have you been fantasizing about? Why do you want to be this and not like a rock star or something else? Some other like fantastical when I grow up I want to be like Halloween costume dream.
Right, yeah. What's interesting is when a little bit later on in the show, you do start to learn a little bit more about the history of magical girls and stuff. Again, it's not knockoffs of Sailor Moon or what have you. It's historical figures. I did like that. It's like Joan of Arc. It's a witch at the Salem witch trials. Like it's stuff like that, which I thought was fascinating. I was like, oh, that's cool. It's not like they're trying to be like, I want to be the next Captain Marvel, right? It's like, no, I want to be like some strong historical figure. Which is neat. Neat stuff.
Yeah, I did like that flash at the very end of other magical girls in other times and other universes, and you get them in different circumstances. Like you see one that's like somewhere in Africa. You see one that's like a Viking. Like it's more that I've never seen period piece magical girls before, and I've never seen a lot of like international magical girls. So I like that even just briefly we get both of those.
For sure. But in episode 4, we kind of start to address the question of like, what is the price of a miracle? What is the cost of this magic? That's a fairly common like theme or trope in magic stories with magic stuff. Is like, hey, magic always has a cost. Like you can do all these spells, but maybe it takes a physical toll on you, or a spiritual or mental toll on you somehow, some way. And so I think this episode 4 is where we start to get some of that. Like, okay, so I could become a magical girl. I just have to make this one wish. Is that it? What's the catch? So I get to make a wish and get powers? Huh. Okay. something's fishy here, right?
Yeah,
almost too good to be true.
All the girls can tell something's kind of up, but they don't know the right questions to ask to get at the information to get the whole picture. They're like, well, they just need that wish so badly, or they need so badly to be powerful to save somebody that they just do it, knowing that there's going to be a catch somewhere down the line. I just can't figure out what it is yet. I'm just going to have to solve that problem when I get to it. And I think something that's neat is that the power you get is tied to the wish you make. Like when Sayaka makes the wish to heal the hands of Violin Boy so he can play again, her superpower is then that she can heal from everything like twice as fast. Like she's able to heal herself then after making that wish to heal somebody else. And then later we learn that because Homura wished to relive her meeting with Madoka over and over again until Madoka has a happy ending, that's why Homura has like time stopping powers.
Yeah. I like that each person has their own power set based on their wish there. I'm kind of curious as to what oh god, now I forget her name, the blonde girl who they look up to. Yeah, Mammy, I believe. Something like that. Yeah, I am curious to know what her wish was, because I don't think her power set was also very clear, other than like, you have a lot of guns.
Yeah.
Why do you have a lot of guns? What did you wish for? But they start to get into all of this of like, okay, magical girls, their job is to hunt these witches. The witches prey on people. They hurt them. They use them to gather up this like grief energy, stuff like that. And so as a magical girl, it's your job to stop them. And when you do, you get their grief seed, and you can use their grief seed to like clear up your soul gem. And if you're like, well, hold on, what's a grief seed? What's a soul gem? They haven't explained it yet. They hadn't. And again, that's part of like, you're really just taking advantage of these middle school girls that don't know to question this stuff.
And it is all this lingo. Like, all right, you're killing witches and you're also killing familiars. Familiars could eventually turn into a witches, but in the familiar state, they don't have a grief seed. Only if you kill a witch do you get a grief seed, and then your grief seed is able to pull all the grief out of your own soul gem. So that's what makes you powerful. So make sure you don't get trapped in a labyrinth.
Yeah. It's fascinating stuff. But they don't really question it, because they do have this mindset of like, oh, I can help people.
Yeah.
It sounds like I do need to stop these witches here. And then almost immediately we get introduced to some more characters who have kind of not become jaded, but have figured out the system, or what they think is the system, right? Where it's like, I'm only ever going to go after witches. I'm not going to go after the familiars, or at least I'm going to wait until the familiars kill some innocent civilians so that they do get a grief seed, and then I can get that, because you want to collect these grief seed. Like they've almost like twisted the system under like a jaded logic, which I thought that was neat too. And even though we only see like a small handful of these magical girls, it's implied that there are a lot of them out there. About and that certain ones have like certain jurisdictions of like, okay, there's one in this town, or there's one in that city, there might be two over that way, so it's possible that they could run into each other, but not so common that there's like, oh, there's 50 of us that all came to the same spot, what are we gonna do? Oh no, who gets it? There's only one, right? Yeah, but like I liked the idea that there are magical girls out there who've been doing it for so long, that have figured out this way to kind of stall what the incubators are looking for, right? This transition into a witch, and they just kind of let it happen. Like again, they don't tell you like, hey, that's not how you're supposed to actually do it. We want you to become a witch, right? Come on, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
They just let them do their thing here, and they think that they've like, I figured it out. But yeah, it's interesting though that they still get to keep their powers despite being like, hey, I'll let these familiars kill some people. Like that seems so twisted that there has to be some like clause in the contract to be like, whoa, dude, if you're letting it happen, like,
there's nothing,
there's something wrong.
Like there's nothing that seems like any of them can do to make Cube break the contract. Like, no, we don't want you as part of our organization anymore. I do want to say that I like that Cube, who looks on the surface very, very cute, but the weird thing about him is that he speaks psychically, so his face is like entirely frozen and emotionless. And you would think he would be, the twist is, he looks cute, but he's evil. He's not necessarily evil. He's just from this race of alien beings who just don't understand emotions, and they are using the humans as energy sources in some Matrix-like way. And they feel like they have provided enough information to the humans to make the bargain. They're like, we felt like we had informed you. If you feel like there was some sort of misunderstanding, that's not necessarily our fault. Like, they're just sort of distant and cold and clinical. Some of the things Cube said seemed like they could come out of the voice of a Twilight Zone villain or something.
Yeah.
And I liked that distinction. Like, not evil, just utterly emotionless and just bureaucratic. And no, I thought I gave you enough information. And well, the fact that we're giving you information and asking for you to consent and sign a contract at all is very respectful, we think.
Yeah. What's I forget what I was just gonna go with that, but let's continue on with the like what happens when you become a magical girl, because one of the big major plot beats is that Sayaka ends up becoming a magical girl, like you said, to help out Violin Boy, so he can perform again and all that good stuff. And she ends up also kind of becoming jaded. Like, hey, if I just don't get emotionally attached to these things that I'm killing, I can kill them really easily. Like, I can commit this violence and it won't affect me. And so that's how she starts to move on with how she operates as a magical girl. And Madoka can see that and is just like, this is wrong. Like, you shouldn't be acting like this. This is not a good thing for you to do. And has to get some advice from her mom, I think, on how do I approach this situation? And essentially figures out like, hey, if I do something drastic to get her attention, if I make some kind of mistake to like wake her up, like she'll pay attention, she'll snap back and learn that she has been doing something not so good. And so they're on a bridge late at night, and Madoka sees her opportunity to do something drastic, and she takes Sayaka's soul gem and just chucks it. That is just like, stop this, you can't do this. Like, not knowing the consequence of what would happen if she just chucked it, not knowing that it would land on top of a truck and then drive away. Right.
Because I think she just wants to like remove Sayaka from what she believes is the source of her magical girl powers, thinking,
right,
if you don't have magic anymore, you're not going to go out and fight anybody. And what none of them, but except for the more senior girls, know is, oh no, the soul gem truly is your soul. And if you get like outside of like 100-foot radius of it, you just collapse as an empty, lifeless shell.
Yeah.
That is a very cool sequence where where Madoka's like, what did I do? What happened to her? And then Homura just has to race down the highway to try and get the soul gem back from like the top of the truck that it's on.
Yeah, it is this drastic moment of like, oh, Madoka, like, what are you doing? We know this is a bad thing. We know that you, like, because she had said, like, I have to make a mistake to get her attention. And so it is like, oh no, this is going to be a mistake. And then immediately when she chucks it and like Homura, and I forget the redhead's
Sakura
name, something like that, but they immediately stop and it's just like, oh shit, like this is not good. And like that's when it cued me in to be like, this wasn't just a like small mistake, like this was a bad thing. But yeah, that is when they learn that upon making the contract with Kyubey to become a magical girl, yes, their soul is ripped from their body. They're essentially killed. And their soul is put into this gem, and that's why they have these soul gems. And as they operate as magical girls, it causes them grief. They kind of take on some of the pain from other people through the use of their magic, and their soul gets clouded. It gets darkened by all of this pain and this grief and this hatred for other people. And that's eventually how they turn into a witch. When their soul is too far gone, they will turn into a witch. And it doesn't seem like there's anything you can do to stop that. Like almost as soon as you've made the contract, it's like the more hope there is, the more despair there is also. You know, like they both happen in equal measures. Problem, right? It's like, was Gotham a lot safer before Batman showed up? Like, arguably, maybe, because when he showed up, that's when you started to get the Joker, the Penguin, Mr. Freeze, Two-Face, Man-Bat, right? You get all of these like weird things.
You became Batman to stop Joe Chill, and then you had just a guy with a gun, and now there's like 20 other people with wild powers haunting the city. Exactly.
There is this like balance of like the more hope that you give and provide to some people, like that can potentially be seen as opportunity or luck or prosperity, that someone was helped, someone was saved, right? So there has to be other people out there on the flip side of that coin. Well, how come I wasn't saved in this one situation? So like there is this balance of hope and despair that comes with all of that I think is a really neat way to look at all of this stuff.
It is.
It's not the most sunshine and rainbows view of the world,
exactly,
right? But it is just like, yeah, that is a thing. Like in superhero comics, in magical girl, any kind of being with a superpower, like that is also the Superman problem of like, he has powers, he can save people from a lot of stuff, but he can't be everywhere at once. And that's also kind of the tragedy of him, is that he can hear people calling for help, he can hear people dying, and he has to prioritize and just be like, not you, I'm gonna do this instead, which really sucks.
What is interesting about these magical girls, now that you bring it up, is that they fight witches. And they save people from witch and familiar related peril. There's never any thought of, well, what else can I do with my magical girl powers? Can I save a careening bus that's gonna like go off the edge of a bridge just because of a traffic accident? Can I stop a robbery? Can I save a kid from a burning building? They never try and apply their magic to any non-magical threats. That's never a question of who else can I help?
They almost do, because they say when some of these witches appear, especially the one that's appearing at the end, like Wolpersnot or something. I don't know how to, some German word there. They say that some of these witches, when they appear, it just appears as some kind of like natural phenomenon, like an earthquake to everyone else who is unaware of this like magical struggle that's happening behind this scenes. So it could look something like that these magical girls are in there helping people to escape, or at least that's what people see.
Yeah.
Right. But in reality, they're in this collage like fairy tale world with all this cutout art and stuff like all sorts of strange stuff. Let's talk about that next. These labyrinths, because these are fantastic. These are amazing,
incredible.
Yeah, so when you go to a witch's labyrinth, I guess is what they're called, like the place where their grief seat is, you enter this like alternate dimension. It feels like this dream-like world. The art style completely changes, but it feels like cutouts from magazines, from illustrated like Grimm's fairy tales. Like there is this darkness to the imagery that's in there. It's weird. It's haunting. It's like this creepy carnival of stuff, of just like surreal imagery.
And I like that they use photo real things. Like I think in the final episode, it's like they photocopied like actual lace and fabric and put it into this labyrinth. And I really like the one that's all dessert themed, and it's all like photos of like cupcakes and donuts and all this Cantaro type stuff that's just been tinted to be like dark and shadowy. It's just a poorly photocopied photo of a cake, and that's what you have to fight. That's the landscape that you're in.
Yeah, it is so abstract, because even like the monsters in there that they are fighting, it's sometimes hard to tell like what they are, what they look like. It just seems like a blob or a mass or some kind of weird wispy shape of this thing that they are hiding. But yeah, it very much has this like grim fairy tale feeling to it, where it is this fantasy land, like, oh, it's all desserts and cupcakes and stuff like that. But there's a sinister side. There is this darkness there that is just like, I don't know, which is an interesting thing, I think, to look into. I haven't looked into much of this, but there is a lot of German influence, right? We mentioned Grimm fairy tale, even Mammy, the first magical girl that they meet. Like she has that, like very much has this like German style outfit to her. The witch at the end is also like they name her with some German Wolgerschnott or I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about, of like, there is a lot of German influence in that. Don't know why.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have enough context for it.
Neither do I. There is quite a bit of anime that does have a German influence, even like Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
I'm also a big fan of Naoki Urasawa's Monster, which takes place in Germany in some spots there. But yeah, just an interesting thing to think about. There's probably something that is like, oh, that makes sense why it would be like that, but I just don't know. Don't know all of that. Let me get my notes. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add about those labyrinths?
I just really dig them. I dig that when they go into this dark, dangerous realm, that the art style completely changes to be things that are not of the realm they come from. Like, we come from this 2D animated world to a world that is like 3D elements and like scans of like actual real world items and textures and things like that. It really makes it feel effective in we've slipped into somewhere we're not supposed to be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is like it is a way to visualize magic or a reality that you don't understand. Right. There is just something that's I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Which is neat. Kind of the last few episodes of the show is when everything really starts to come together. Here, though, we learn that Homura is from another timeline. She's been going back and back to save Madoka so that she won't turn into a magical girl, so that she won't turn into a witch. At the end here, and that I forgot that was a thing. That she had been. It is just this big old time loop that she is trying to save them, because Homura's a character that is very cold when we meet her. She doesn't want to get emotionally attached. And we think that's because of this like jadedness of like, you don't understand how being a magical girl works. Like, you're young, you're naive, even though I'm only like 6 months older than you, right? It's like, you're young and naive. But she's trying to change Madoka's fate. And I think by the end of this, she kind of realizes that she can't change Madoka's fate. It's only Madoka that can change it. Depending on what she wishes for or does not wish for, right? That is the thing that can change her fate. And then we also learn that Kyubey is an alien, an incubator, trying to harness the energy that is released when a magical girl changes into a witch. Which, like you said, is this like Matrix-like human battery thing here. So
it works.
It's an interesting concept that there is this, like, at the moment that they finally turn, there's so much pain and so much grief that they can kind of harness that and use that to make sure the universe doesn't die. And that is the thing. As cold and emotionless as Kyubey is, and as much as he doesn't understand humans, he is genuinely trying to do a good thing. He's like, hey, the universe is dying. Like, it's actually like contracting, and like it will get smaller and will eventually just bloop, that's it, no more. But if we harness this energy, we can keep the universe going. We can expand it. Like, we can find more. And so they are trying to do something good, but it is because they are so emotionless and just don't really understand the humans that they're shepherding and harvesting this from, that it's just like, this shit sucks. Like, you are causing more harm than good here. There has to be another way.
I think it's interesting that Kyubey tells us about the species I come from. This is our plan. We never see anybody else. We only hear it from Kyubey. So they
mention other familiars, but we don't see them in the real world. We only see the like evil versions of them. So somehow Kyubey could become evil too, I guess.
Yeah. Even after he explains everything, you are still kind of wondering, is this the truth? Because I don't have any other context to put you in. We haven't seen anybody else who would supposedly know what you know.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing. It's like, there's no one else to be like, well, actually, it's more like this. And the way Kyubey does things, technically, like, he's more letter of the law than heart of the law here, right?
Yeah.
That would be an interesting thing. I know that there is, I think, a few more Madoka Magica like side stories or spin-offs. There's a number of manga that's out there that you can read. Let's see. I'm looking at their Wikipedia page. There's I think some movie adaptions. Because I feel like there's more than one show or stuff of this on Hulu when we were looking this up. But I don't know. Interesting stuff. So I guess the last thing to say is that Madoka kind of figures it out.
Yeah.
She like that, I think, is one of the neat things of the show, is that some of these magical girls make their wish immediately based upon their immediate needs, right? There is no process of like, well, let me think about that. Like, let me truly figure out what is the best wish that I could make here. They're just like, oh, the boy I like got into a car accident. I don't know exactly what the injury was, but like, they're just like, somehow he hurt his hands. Like, let me heal his hands because I love him, right? Which is not necessarily a bad wish, but because Madoka has this experience of not making a wish, she gets to see all of the pain, all of the hardship, all of the ins and outs of what it means to be a magical girl before she makes her wish there. Despite not necessarily thinking about her retirement as a magical girl, she does seem to be the only one that's like, well, why do you do it this way? Like, what does it mean to, like, this is a bad thing that you're harvesting this energy. You're causing so much. Like, she is thinking about some of the like philosophy behind it, which I think leads her to then being like, what if I become the like embodiment of hope and I take away everyone's grief? Like, what if I am like the ultimate grief seed here?
Yeah.
In a weird way that also heals me, because by doing that I've given hope to everyone there. So yeah, she like ends up becoming like the embodiment of hope, which, like I said at the start, is like, this show is very dark. It's very heavy and emotional, but it ends on this bright note of just like, this is nice. Like, she figured it out. She made this wish and she helped everyone everywhere, no matter when they are in the timeline, all that stuff. And yeah, I think it ends of like what you typically think of for a magical girl. It's like, oh, it is supposed to be hopeful and it is supposed to be happy and joyful, and that's where the show ends up. And I'm like, it's good. They did it. They made it.
It's still kind of a very somber. I think I've said somber like 3 times. I truly mean it. Like that.
Yeah.
This is a show, like I said, with no laughs, not a lot of levity. Like, there's things that are cute. Like Madoka's little brother is cute, but not in a way that really picks up the mood of the entire thing at all. He moves the needle like 0.02%. But the final episode does have some sweeter moments. Like, I like that sort of in this space outside of time, outside of life, Madoka and Sayaka get to watch Violin Boy do violin, where he's like auditioning for some sort of show or some sort of art academy or whatever. And we see the judges, whoever is evaluating him, be really impressed. And Sayaka's like, this is what I wanted. I wanted more people to hear his music. And we know that she had a crush on him. Like, she kind of wanted to, after she was there, like at his bedside, you know, visiting him almost every day, continuing to bring him music. Like, she wanted her affection for him to be reciprocated back to her. She hoped that, like, by making this wish to heal him, even if she could never tell him that's what she did, that would kind of make him fall in love with her. But I like that that's the final scene on that, to show that it wasn't entirely selfish. Like, she wanted him to continue to play for him and for anybody else who would get to have the privilege of hearing his music. She's like, his music makes people happy. I wanted that for people. I think that's a nice tone to end it on. I do like when, like, she's the only person. So after Madoka she ceases to be alive and she becomes like a principle. She becomes like a concept, which I kind of like. And that she's like, no, that was my plan. I just want to be the concept of hope for the rest of existence. Like, the only person who remembers her.
Fascinating.
Yeah. What a big idea to process and to align yourself with.
Yeah.
To choose to spend the rest of your life not being alive, but to be this sort of angel figure that people will glimpse in their darkest moments.
Yeah. What I like about that is a lot of deconstructions don't put things back together. And if they do, it's not necessarily in any kind of meaningful way. It's just like, well, all right, we moved on, right? This, I think, they tore everything apart, looked into some of those like darker corners of magic and magical girl stuff, and then built it back up into this very hopeful, very bright and shiny story that was just like, this turned out nice. Like it's still kind of sad, but there's hope for the future, which is neat. So
it's a really good point. Yeah, like, this is a show that showed the entire point of it is this magical girl life you're dreaming of, it's going to kill you. Yeah. And then the show flips back on itself and says, okay, if I'm dead, I'll just be an angel for somebody else then. Like, I'm going to find a way to keep it going. Yeah, I do like the hopeful tone at the end of the show. I like that Homura is the only person who remembers Madoka because she's kind of got that time power. She's able to hold on to her memories from every timeline and every universe. And it seems like her little brother kind of remembers her, at least in an abstract way. Like, he doesn't, maybe he doesn't remember, oh, I had an older sister and then she disappeared, but it is some sort of a figure in his mind. Like, we see Homura taking a walk in a park and the little boy's like drawing Madoka in the dirt with a stick. And he sees where Madoka has given Homura her hair ribbon and he points at it and he's like, Madoka! Like, he doesn't, it's not clear if he knows what it means, but he recognizes it from somewhere. Yeah. And then Homura like talks with the mom a little bit and the mom's like, there's something I really like about that hair ribbon. I feel like if I had a daughter, I'd want her to wear something like that. Like, I do like that sense of Madoka's gone, but she did leave a legacy among her family where they are going to remember her. Yeah, and Homura recognizes that and checks in with them. I do always like the moments of whenever a hero has lost a fellow hero and they go try and bring hope, whether tangible or intangible, to that fallen hero's family. And she like gives the mom the hair ribbon. It's nice. So much. Another weird art thing of the show that I dug is that frequently the show is set at golden hour, but it's this really harsh version of golden hour where the remaining light is really bright, or it's like everything's an intense yellow or an intense red. And then when we get the sort of sunset scene in the final episode, it is a more naturalistic, soft, glowing, warm orange sunset, and not this like harsh, bathed in red doomsday sunset like previous episodes have had.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Stuff. I don't know if I have anything else to say about Madoka Magica. It was a good one. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Go check it out if you haven't. What are you doing listening to this whole podcast if you haven't watched it yet? I don't know.
Yeah, and if you're like me, thank you very much. If you're like me and you're just sort of you enjoy anime in passing, it's not really your thing, but you have seen it. Like, if you watched it growing up and you just haven't really followed through with it as an adult, what you saw when you were a kid probably is enough background context to watch and enjoy Madoka. Like, if you've seen some Sailor Moon once, you're good. You're fine.
Yep. Good indeed. Well, I'm going to pull up our bingo sheets. I finally have those ready to go here, and I can pull them up on screen. There we go. Okay, so let's see here. We have...
I know. I've got several I can get. I, of course, very obvious magical transformation sequence.
Yes.
Change in art direction.
Change in art direction. Yes, we do have that one. Let's see. There's my transformation.
Time loop. Girl. And I did put unnecessarily large room on my bingo sheet. This was a trope we had been talking about in the sense of like the vast chasms of like a Star Wars spaceship where there's just like a room that goes on forever. Like, why'd you build your space center with a bottomless pit? And then I was like, you know what? It can show up in other things. Like, you can have a giant room like that in like a castle and a fantasy story. I was not expecting this to be able to give me unnecessarily large room, but here it is.
Yeah. Melissa, I am sharing with you the link to the Google doc. I forgot to do that, so I'm sharing that with you right now. That way you can mark the stuff that you got on your thing here at the same time.
Okay, I've just been doing mine in my own Microsoft Excel.
Yeah, I figured, and I was like, I'm going to have to remember everything you're saying here, and I'm trying to find the ones on mine that I have.
Okay.
I don't get to mark this one down yet, but I did get one hot dog. There is a hot dog in one of the
scenes. Hooray!
So I did get one hot dog. Let's see here. I need to make a change on my board. I'm just seeing I have two of the same spaces for mocap character listed down there. I can't mark it down because we didn't get a mocap thing, but I have it on there twice, so I'll need to fix that. But I did get a time loop.
Good. There's my time loop. Normally anime can be pretty good for fake fast food brand. We got Rocky snacks instead of Pocky, but I was looking for like instead of KFC, it's like LFC.
I agree. Let's see. No breaks into dance, no death by electrocution. Let's see. Guess change of art direction I can mark down too.
We don't exactly have a ghost. We don't have a ghost the way I intended it. Because it's sort of abstractly a ghost in that it's not just a dead person, but it's a person sort of outside of time also.
I wouldn't put ghost.
Yeah. We might have had a foe waiting in shadows to talk, but not that I really latched onto. I put that on the board in the sense of like the protagonist comes home and like the crime boss is already waiting in their home and like turns on the light and they're sitting there drinking the hero's own whiskey. Like, I'd like to make a deal with you.
Yeah. I think that's kind of about it.
Yeah, pretty good. I was able to knock off 4 things.
There you go. Good stuff. Melissa, real quick. Do you want to, you know what? Never mind. We'll do this off air here and fix my double mocap space. I was going to say, you should pick a new square for me to do, but then I guess it'd be hard to like, okay, what ones do you have on there already? And
why do I have to pick it?
I just thought it'd be neat to be like, you decide. You pick. What should be on my board? You pick it.
Too much responsibility.
Yeah, we'll do that off air. But anyways, there we go. That's our bingo check-in for right now. Oh man, let me put it back up on screen. I don't think I Had it up on screen. There you go, so you guys can see what it is. And there we go, back to normal. Okay, good stuff. Melissa, recommendations. What would you recommend to people if they enjoyed this? What else might they like?
You mentioned it earlier, Revolutionary Girl Utena. This is a show I did not watch when I was younger, but I would read about it in An America magazine. Take a shot every time I reference An America magazine. I just thought it looked so cool. And finally, last year, I got around to watching a couple episodes of it. I do a show with my brother Jams called Saturday Morning Obscurities, a show about weird old kid shows you feel like only you remember. And it was Pride Month, and so I nominated this one. It is a show about a girl who, when she's young, she has this encounter with a prince. And instead of growing up and falling in love with the prince, she grows up and she's like, that guy was cool. I should be a prince. I want to be a prince. So she goes to school. She like insists on wearing the boys' uniform. She'll play sports with them. And they're like, do you want to join our team? And she's like, no, I don't want to hang out with you gross boys. I just wear the boys' uniform. I'm a prince. So she's got this really interesting sense of herself and what she wants to do in life. And the school has this student council that like duels each other, and like you can duel them over grievances. And she does this to like duel a guy who was like really rude to a friend of hers who had a crush on him. And she defeats him. And the student council is like, well, that guy had the Rose Bride. Now that you've defeated him, the Rose Bride is yours. This girl's going to move into your dorm room now. That's your wife. Yep. In the eyes of the student council, you're betrothed to this girl.
There's a lot of weird stuff in that show.
We only watched the first 2 episodes to talk about it on my podcast, but it's so surreal. It's kind of this, where there's like, Utena gets assigned to this dorm room that's like a mansion. And she goes in the mansion. She's like, all right, this is my room here. And then she's walking around. She's like, nobody else lives here. I think I'm entirely alone in the mansion. It's just me and my bride now. And my bride's cute little pet monkey mascot. Or like the dueling chamber. It's like you have to go into a mysterious forest and walk up a spiral staircase. It's got something kind of like Madoka has, where the whole
every episode where it just it does the fight. It just reuses the same animation. It can get annoying that it reuses it, but like there's purpose behind the repetition in that. And it's interesting.
Yeah, just a show where there's really surreal physical, literal architecture and just sort of the structure of the entire show and the entire universe that it's in, where it's like, that's not exactly the point. I don't know if that's a mystery that really has an answer, but it adds to the general sense of eeriness around everything that's going on. And another thing this reminded me of, I once tried to play the video game Hatoful Boyfriend, which is a dating sim where you date pigeons. Every person you could possibly date is a bird. And that's not the weird part I'm talking about. Like, you were presumably some sort of high school aged girl. I never played long enough to learn if you like get any image of yourself or not. But I believe that's who you're supposed to think you are playing. You go to school's full of birds. You're like the only human in bird school. You have to decide which bird you want to date. And then at like the end of day 1 in the game, you're like, what a big day at school. Time for me to go home and rest. And you go home and your home is just a barren cave. And that's what I'm talking about. Just this quiet background weirdness that's not the major thrust of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. If you guys want to watch another anime about a time loop trying to save someone, Steins Gate is always one of my favorite things to recommend. One of my favorite time travel shows, period. It has a lot of emotional stuff in there, but it has a lot of great comedy in there too. That show is deceptively funny. Because you wouldn't necessarily think so, but it absolutely is. I like that one a lot. If you want another story about little children being harvested for energy, Monsters Inc. would be a good one. It oddly has the same plot. Like we're taking their screams and grief and using that as energy to run the world. Right?
Nobody's more powerful at it than the one with blue hair.
Right? Yeah.
Very similar.
Run by some like weird alien looking monsters. Like, but yeah, I would recommend that stuff. I don't know. There's a lot of magical girl anime out there. Of course, there's Sailor Moon, stuff like that. You mentioned Card Captor Sakura at the start.
It also reminded me of again, something I have never read or watched, but I remember reading about it and the title still lodged in my head. Whatever Magic Knight Rayearth was.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that one, but sure.
It was also by Clamp, the same creative team that did this Card Captor Sakura. The series follows 3 8th grade girls who find themselves transported find themselves drawn into another world. They learn that this magical world is influenced by your will.
I gotcha.
I clicked on the Wikipedia article and immediately the blurb turned into a far, far more complicated full plot synopsis.
Yeah. Another anime that I would like to recommend is Princess Tutu. I watched this a handful of years ago. I don't remember when exactly, but it is a very similar, has that like grim fairy tale kind of influences. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the main character goes by the name of Duck because it's kind of a mix of the Ugly Duckling and Swan Lake, like mixed in there, all that stuff. But yeah, she is a young girl. She's a ballerina. And there are these like darker things happening within this fantasy world that she lives in. And I think the labyrinths that was here in Madoka, just having that like darker, almost grim fairy tale kind of style reminds me a lot of Princess Tutu. So there you go. Go check it out.
Nice.
Go check it out. Melissa, it is your turn to do the pitches. What do you got for me?
This is something I threatened to turn into an entire theme month, and you declined. So it's only 1 week's worth of pitches. I am turning January into Danuary, a celebration of actors and directors with Dan in their names.
Okay.
Think back on the great Dans we've encountered in the review show. Daniel Craig, Danny Pudi, Daniel Day Kim. There's more Dans out there to be seen. For this week and for at least 1 week in January and years to come, we're going to add a new Dan to our roster.
Okay. Hot Dan.
I have 3 Dan movies. Pitch number 1. Daniel Day-Lewis stars in There Will Be Blood. This is the Paul Thomas Anderson film from 2007. I have seen this before, but since this was the first PTA movie I ever saw, and I've seen more of his movies, I've learned more about him since I've seen this, and I would like to go back and watch it with a bit more context as to the director's filmography.
Sure.
Ruthless silver miner turned oil prospector Daniel Plainview, see Daniel playing a Daniel, moves to oil-rich California. Using his adopted son, H.W., to project a trustworthy family man image, Plainview cons local landowners into selling him their valuable properties for a pittance. However, local preacher Eli Sunday suspects Plainview's motives and intentions, starting a slow-burning feud that threatens both of their lives. Milkshakes are threatened in this movie. If you've never seen it, now's your chance to see I Drink Your Milkshake in context.
There you go.
Have you seen this movie?
I actually have not.
I think you might dig it. It's in a vaguely Western type setting with vaguely Western type aesthetics. And I think it's got enough of a crime flavor in it. Crime in the sense of cons.
Sure. Yeah.
That you might enjoy.
Cool.
Pitch number 2 from director Danny Boyle, the movie Sunshine. I think I've pitched this to you before, but then I realized, wait a minute, Danny Boyle directed that. I can pitch it again. In the not too distant future, Earth's dying sun spells the end for humanity. In a last-ditch effort to save the planet, a crew of 8 men and women ventures into space with a device that could revive the star. However, an accident, a grave mistake, and a distress beacon from a long-lost spaceship throw the crew and its desperate mission into a tailspin. I don't know a lot about this movie, but whenever I do hear it brought up, people think very highly of it. And it's got quite a cast. We've got Cillian Murphy, Michelle Yeoh, Chris Evans, Benedict Wong is in it. A nice assortment of people in an interesting seeming sci-fi story.
Okay.
And pitch number 3, starring Daniel Radcliffe and directed by the Daniels, it's Swiss Army Man.
Interesting.
Being stranded on a deserted island leaves young Hank bored, lonely, and without hope. As a rope hangs around his neck, Hank prepares to end it all until he suddenly spots a man lying by the shore. Unfortunately, he is dead and quite flatulent. Using the gassy body to his advantage, Hank miraculously makes it back to the mainland. However, he now finds himself lost in the wilderness and dragging the talking corpse named Manny along for the adventure. I've never seen this, but I am now intrigued to see what I think might have been the directorial debut of the team that brought you Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's those Daniels. That's them. So 3 movies directed by and or starring a Dan. Paul Dano is also in There Will Be Blood and Swiss Army Man. And even though I know his name is pronounced Dano, when you look at it, it looks like Dan. So right. He's also bringing the Dan energy here. So 3 very different movies. There Will Be Blood and Sunshine, both from 2007, by the way, and Swiss Army Man from 2016. How many farts are you up for in the next week, Kyle?
God damn it. I'm stuck deciding between Sunshine and Swiss Army Man. Those ones sounded the most interesting to me. I think let's go with Swiss Army Man.
Okay. You sound hesitant.
I'm interested in I especially because of how much I liked Everything Everywhere All at Once. Would like to see more of the filmography of those directors, right?
Yeah.
And also Daniel Radcliffe, I still really only know him as Harry Potter, even though I don't like those movies all that much. I know he's in the like Weird Al Yankovic biopic.
He's very good as Weird Al. He's a great performance.
What's that Guns Akimbo where he has like the guns?
Yes.
Like he's done some weird, interesting things since he's done Harry Potter, and I haven't really explored that. So Swiss Army Man. Let's go with that.
Swiss Army Man. Okay. I know this movie is about a farting corpse, and I really don't know what else happens in it. I don't know the extent to which you can push farting corpse, but I look forward to learning. I didn't even where can Swiss Army Man be viewed? Swiss Army Man may be found. Oh, it's one of those premium subscriptions all over the place, but it looks like you can rent it for $2 from Redbox. So have fun.
Sure. Sounds good. Well, there you go. That is what we shall do this next week. We will do Swiss Army Man. And then the week after that, the first 3 Fast and the Furious movies. So get on board, hop in, and buckle up. There you go. But that's about it for the podcast this week. Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
I may be located on Twitter and Instagram at WilkyWit, WilkyWit. And as I mentioned earlier, listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities.
Good stuff. If you guys want to follow me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter, co-host, and Hive. And if you guys would like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts at all of those same places. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. If you're watching on YouTube, go check out one of our other videos right over there. Yeah, we will see you all next time. This has been the Whatnauts review show number 237. We will see you all then. Bye.
Bye.